So is it a function of having fewer kids, having them later, investing more in them because in fact education, all that stuff matters more for life advancement than it did a few generations ago?
That's definitely part of it. And that's goes hand in hand with that slow life strategy. Kids grow up faster, slower, they have less independence because there's fewer of them, they get more attention, the parents invest more in each child, there's more the anticipation of higher education, income inequality plays some role in this too. And but it's not just parents. The culture has changed in this direction. There are parents who want their kids to be free range, but they're afraid that if they let their 8-year-old walk back alone from the park, that Child Protective Services will show up. And they have sometimes. There's, stories about that. So it's been an overall shift in the whole culture toward the idea that children need to be carefully protected. And this is another place where there's clear trade-offs because we've done really well in this area. A lot fewer kids die or get injured in car accidents and other types of physical accidents. But there's been mission creep. We certainly have that idea we need to protect kids from physical harm, but that's crept up to we need to protect kids from experiences. Like we don't want them to be uncomfortable. We don't want them to be unhappy. When they get older, then and then the kids become teenagers and young adults, and then they have the idea of I don't want to be in the situation where I might disagree with someone and feel uncomfortable. And it creeps up that scale to where, as many people have observed, the word trauma doesn't mean anything anymore because it's applied to so many situations, many of which are probably not trauma.
Yeah, it's and we kind of have a way of looking at this, which is measuring self-declared measures of happiness or of sadness, depression, optimism. And, we can talk objectively, is slow living more better or worse, but it does seem to be making kids, at least they are less happy and less adjusted than it seems they have been in a very long time, which is a paradox, of course, right? Because you sort of think, man, if I were a kid in like the 30s struggling to survive, in the Depression, I might have lots of actual real trauma to deal with. And yet they seem to have gotten through it, carried on. My grandparents and parents were in London when it was being bombed, and they don't talk about their trauma. They don't talk about their feelings afterwards, but somebody hears somebody use the wrong word and they're a quivering wreck. So tell me about the levels of unhappiness among Gen Z and how they compare generationally to other generations at this time in their development.
Sure. So, the overall picture of the generational trends in mental health is pretty complex. But if we focus on, say, the trends for teens and young adults in the last 20 years, there's an extremely clear, consistent, simple picture, which is depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicide attempts, completed suicide, pretty much everything you can think of that is related to mental health, also unhappiness, life satisfaction, loneliness, either improves or is stable until about 2012, and then it all goes wrong. So clinical level depression is a good example. Doubled for teens between 2011 and 2019. So notice that's before the pandemic.